Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Castle Waiting by Linda Medley. This was a 2006 collection published by Fantagraphics Books, and this collected all of the Castle Waiting comics by Linda Medley from 1996 when she started it, self-published, to 2006 when this was published. So it's a pretty fat little book. It's a small book, but man, it's hefty. I think this is over 300 pages. So it's a really, once again, from Fantagraphics, it's a very nice book, very well produced. And I love this full color cover. This artwork looks perfectly great in black and white. But man, I wish it was all like this. It would be just lusciously beautiful if it was. I like how she even puts in an old book plate where you could write your name in. I should do that. Nice title page. An interesting thing of this book is that the pages, the edges, are like that rough-hewn, I don't know how to just what that's called in the business, but I haven't read a book like this in so many years. I guess the hardcover first editions, they always have this kind of paper. So it gives it this nice, like, old feel, like this is some old book, you know, that you could have read as a kid. We have an introduction from fantasy author Jane Yolen. We also have this nice little design pages in between every chapter. Also gives it that feel of an old book. Chapter 1, The Curse of Brambley Hedge. This is going to be the first few chapters of the book. And we're introduced to the town of Putney. And the main feature of Putney is the castle there. Apparently, Putney is this great little town. Everyone's happy. The king is very wise and benevolent. And everything is great. And as we read the first few pages, we realize this is the Sleeping Beauty story. But Linda Medley, throughout this book, will take all these great fairy tales, or famous fairy tales, and just the characters are more rounded, more three-dimensional, and just the dialogue's funnier and cleverer, you know? I know these fairy tales have been retold a million times, but she does it with panache. So we got the king and queen who can't have a baby. The king goes to visit this local witch who lives with all of her sisters. Her name's Mother Medora. Here's Mother Medora. She makes a potion that'll give his wife a baby. And we see this little guy here, this little imp watching. We're going to find out that his name is Leeds. So Leeds runs right to Maud. Now Maud is, she's like the queen witch of the area. And she is very butthurt that the king went to Medora, who we find out is also her sister. So she's another sister of Medora. So Maud goes to visit Medora and tries to cut a deal with her. Medora says, get out of here. So the king and queen have a baby. And like I said, this is just the Sleeping Beauty tale. So you know what happens. Maud is the evil witch, you know. So there's a huge party at the castle for the christening of the baby. And just like in the fairy tale, the good witches, Maldora and her sisters, they all give gifts to the baby. You know, beauty, happiness, obedience, generosity. But then Maud shows up and she says she will die on her 15th birthday. She'll prick her finger on a spindle and drop down dead. And Luckily, Maldora hasn't given her gift yet, so she uses her gift for the baby to undo Maldora's curse. I never understood this, though. Instead of just saying, no, she won't die, she says, no, she won't. She will be put into a deep sleep for 100 years, and she'll be awakened by a prince who's her one true love. Just like the story. We see a little cameo from Rumpelstiltskin. He agrees to spin all the yarn in the kingdom because the king outlaws spindles, just like in the fairy tale. But the king doesn't promise Rumpelstiltskin his firstborn. They basically say, you'll take 30 pieces of silver. Fuck you. Leeds warns Mald. He says, our boss won't like this. You went too far. Cursing an innocent baby. So Leeds says, okay, you should listen to me, but whatever. So I guess the townspeople blame Maldora and her sisters because now there's no spindles. It's pretty annoying. Nobody can spin yarn. So they kind of harass them, and so they leave the village. Never to be seen again. Now it's 15 years later. We see it's the birthday of young Maldora. They named the baby after Mother Maldora. We're introduced to our 3 handmaidens, who will be very important characters in this whole saga. And the king and queen are rushing back from, they had to do some business elsewhere. And it seems like they're being thwarted at every turn. Their cart breaks a wheel. They've been just, so many bad things have happened on their journey home to delay them. It's obviously Mald's work. And Mald goes to the castle. She's got a spindle. And she pricks the finger of the young princess, who falls into a deep sleep, and everyone else does too. As she leaves, though, the devil takes her soul right down to hell. And Leeds says, people never learn. She should have listened to me. He knew that would happen. So everyone's fallen asleep, and all of a sudden these briars, this bramble of briars and thorns, rise up out of the ground and just kill the king and the queen, destroys their carriage, and also surrounds the castle so nobody can get in or out. And because of that, the town of Putney, within months, everyone leaves, because without the castle's protection, there's no point to Putney. So now Putney is basically a dead town. And the castle is considered haunted by everyone. Here's chapter 3, The Curse of Bramley Hedge, part 3. Now 100 years later, a handsome young prince goes to the castle. The brambles just part for him. For 100 years, they've kept anyone from intruding. We actually see the skeletons in these brambles. He kisses the princess. She wakes up, just like in the story. But unlike the story, this prince is like, oh, now we'll go back to my castle. And the princess is like, yeah, okay. And she says a quick goodbye to everyone and takes off. Because everyone else is woken up, of course. And everyone's kind of shocked. They're like, what? You're just leaving? And she does. Never to be seen again. So now we see much later than that, because we see the 3 handmaidens of the princess. They're old ladies now. And they're telling this story to this guy, Rackham. He's kind of this half-stork-looking dude. And he is there to apply for the job of chancellor. And they give him the job, and This is kind of just the preface to the main story. Chapter 4, Batola Drome. So now we cut away to this other castle. We see this woman, Jane. She escapes with this nice bear guy named Orson. He gives her a lucky amulet. And as she leaves, we realize that the reason why she's leaving, it looks like she's been abused. On her journey, she's basically heading for Castle Waiting. Castle Waiting at this point is known as a sanctuary. So that's where she's going. She spends some time with the 3 little pigs who own a little inn. And we already get the sense that Jane is just a very affable, sweet, likable person. Everyone she meets seems to, want to help her out, be nice to her. We also find out that she's pregnant. So on the way, she ends up staying a little while at Bremen, the town of Bremen. She needs a little rest. It's the music festival when she gets there. Luckily, she gets a room from these kindly tavern owners, Ivan and Anna. And they instantly just treat her like a daughter. They're very nice to her. That's the thing about these comics. They're it's almost like a comfort TV, they say. This is like a comfort comic where even the most villainous person is kind of either not that bad or defeatable. So it's just almost everyone she meets is pretty nice. And it just makes you read this and you're like, oh, this would be such a nice world, to escape into. Where just things are... But it's not syrupy and sweet. The sense of humor can be biting and kind of sassy, So she meets this old Romany fortune teller. And while she's getting her palm read, these 2 dwarf musicians, who are also thieves when they don't get enough money from their music work. One of them, the brunette, there's a blonde and a brunette. I think they're brothers. He notices Jane's bulging purse, and he plans to rob her. The brother's not into it. He's just yeah, she's a pregnant woman. That's kind of shitty, even for us. He's like, but look at that purse. So he goes along, and she goes back to her tavern. She's just in time for dinner, and the blonde dwarf sits down next to her. Basically, he's going to distract her. And the brother goes under the table, tries to steal her gold, and he's zapped by some mystical force. So basically the blonde's kind of relieved by this. He's like, see, so now we can't rob her. Let's just get this notion out of our head. I kind of like her, actually. She's pretty nice. I'm having a good time just chatting with her. So enough of this, robbery business. It turns out then the stable hand comes in and says that the Romany have stolen Jane's horse. And she tries to, get help to retrieve it. Nobody wants to go. They're like, why don't you just buy another horse? And she's like, no, you don't understand. My horse, Rosa, is like my best friend. I have to get Rosa back. Nobody can help her. Nobody wants to help her. But except for the dwarf. He convinces his brother. He's like, we got to help her. So they know the area. They know the Romany. They go to the camp. And they attempt to steal the horse back. But then they're captured by the Romany. And that fortune teller lady. She comes out. And then the blonde dwarf, I guess, has a silver tongue. And he has a parlay with, the old fortune teller. And he can kind of through some chicanery. But he convinces her to let him go with the horse. So this is even the guys who are going to rob her end up becoming her friends. That's how likable Jane is. And now Jane takes off. So that was just a little interlude on her journey to Castle Waiting. I really like Linda Medley's just pure, simple, classic style. It's almost like reading like a Uncle Scrooge comic by Carl Barks. It's, she's not doing any flashy storytelling tricks or anything like that. It's just, really classic kind of comic storytelling. But it works for the story. It's perfect. So she finally makes it to Castle Waiting. It turns out Castle Waiting has an infestation of these little like polter sprites who are, they're kind of not completely malevolent, but they are mischievous and they steal things and they pester all the people there. And, but they're not really like evil or anything. So we're introduced to Simple Simon, who is quite simple, and his mother. So on her way into town through the brambles, she meets Iron Henry. I guess Iron Henry is some fairy tale, which I don't remember as a kid. I never heard of Iron Henry. He's very cold. So then Rackham and Simon's mother, Dinah, they kind of run things around, the castle. They welcome her to the castle. This beautiful drawing. It looks like Dan and David Day. It's really nice illustration. So they show her around. And she meets everyone. It's interesting how Linda Medley was a total superhero artist for DC. She did, in the 80s, she drew a lot of, like, Justice League International and some other titles. But then, luckily, she got the money together to self-publish this stuff. Because she didn't write it, DC, which is a shame. She's a really good writer. I mean, it's such a big book, I can't really get into details. But, just the writing is just really fun. It's really kind of funny. A lot of the pages, not much happens. The plot is kind of slow. It's really just an excuse for the interaction of the characters, and the humorous interaction. So nobody will let Jane do anything because she's expecting. So she's really bored, but she's happy to be there. She meets the ladies in waiting. And they were the only ones who lived in Castle Waiting for a long time. And they're the ones who basically opened it up as a sanctuary to others. She meets Dr. Fell, the weird doctor there, who's always making bizarre potions for everyone to ingest. Chapter 6, Labors of Love. So basically there's just page after page of her meeting the residents of Castle Waiting. Seeing how the whole place works. Trying to talk to Iron Henry, but he's just very off-putting. But then Simon says, hey, I want to show you a secret. And they go up into the tower that nobody ever goes into. Supposedly it's haunted. And he's got a key. And he opens the door, and it's a library. The old royal library. Nobody's been in there because everyone thinks it's haunted. Jane loves books, so she's amazed. Rackham comes in and kind of scolds Simon, but it turns out it's all an act. He let Simon find that key because he's like, yeah, it's a lot more fun when you think you're doing something you're not. And I wanted Simon to have a little something, So everyone in this comic, they're just so nice. But they're like clever too. They're clever and smart, but they're really fucking nice. He basically says to Jane, he says, you can be the librarian. I'll give this key to you and you'll be in charge. So I'm just basically showing off the art here. Because like I said, this is just pages and pages of just fun character interaction. And now we have chapter 7, The Caged Heart. So Jane gives birth to her baby. Now the baby is very interesting because kind of looks like a little monster baby. He's got pointy ears. He's got a weird like pig snout for a nose. And but Jane thinks he's beautiful. She says, "Oh, he looks just like his father." So we don't know that story yet, who the father is, but it sounds like an interesting story. If he looked like this, it was a mixed marriage, I guess. So now we get a flashback to Jane being born. And then we come back to the present. Iron Henry has made her this beautiful iron crib. So now we find out the story of Iron Henry, why he is the way he is. I guess Henry lost his son. His heart was so broken that he was dying. So Dr. Fell put 3 iron bands around his heart, which saved his life. But also, that's why he can't really feel emotions. He can't show them, at least. He can't even feel pain. So those polter sprites are kind of, they harass everybody. And they're all in the crib. And Jane's like, get out of here. Leave my kid alone. But one of them, he doesn't want to go. He's like, I know her baby. I like baby. Let me help baby. This weird little guy. He looks like the guy from the Dead End Kids. Or whatever there's Leo Gorcey, that weird little hat used to wear. So she agrees. She says, okay, but you guys just one at a time. You're in charge. And he's very protective. So we'll see more of this guy. He's like the baby's nanny in a way. Oh, I should also mention we meet Sister Peace is a very important character here. She's a nun who lives in Castle Waiting as well. She's one of my favorite characters in the book. So one day a stranger comes and Jane is a little scared. She's like, who's this? Chapter 8, Cavalier. And she's going around telling everyone, like, hey, someone's coming. It turns out it's Chess. Chess the knight, the errant knight. And he's been away for years and he's returned. And we soon find out that he's very charming, very likable, even though he's kind of a Lothario and a womanizer. So everyone's happy to see Chess, and everyone hugs him, and he's gonna stay back for a while. He obviously is very close to Iron Henry. He's kind of concerned that Iron Henry's even more withdrawn than normal. He meets Jane, and he tries to hit on Jane, and she just laughs it off. So now we get back to Lady Jane's origin story. As a little girl, she was already promised to this wealthy merchant, well, his son. So these two little kids had an arranged marriage from the time they're like 4. And he's a little brat, this kid. So his name's Tylo. So they don't like each other. Luckily, Jane's pretty good at giving it back, you know. She's not a wilting flower, you know. She's so these kids grow up basically, you know, he comes to visit once a week. They're trying to nurture their relationship so when they're of age, they can marry and seal the bond between these two wealthy mercantile families. But she doesn't like the idea of this. Now back to the present. We find out the source of the castle's wealth is a gold egg leg hen. There's that baby. It looks pretty monstrous. Very cute though. I like when Iron Henry first holds the baby, he's so ugly. Chapter 9, City Mouse, Country Mouse. Part 1. So Chess and Rackham go to town to get the, you know, twice a year I think they go to get supplies. So while they're in town, they exchange their gold eggs for coins. And at the store, a niece is there. The owner's niece is helping out, and she totally develops a crush for Rackham. Chess is ribbing him about it. They go to this tavern, and they meet the owner of the tavern is this Amazon woman. She's just like strong as hell, stronger than anyone else. Part 2 of City Mouse, Country Mouse. They're hanging out at the tavern. And basically they just get in some misadventures here. Some of their money is taken. They don't have enough money to pay for the supplies. Yada, yada, yada. I gotta go through this part pretty fast. Show you the art. They meet some bandits, but they're rescued by the tavern owner, Sally, the Amazon. She's a part of the local militia, so. So Chess and Rackham make it back to the castle. And now we have Chapter 11, Hook, Line, and Sinker. This is a little interlude where Sister Peace and Simon go fishing. And then this beautiful woman shows up and kind of tries to seduce Simon. And Sister Peace recognizes her as Leeds. She's like, okay, Leeds, enough of that shit. So we kind of see here that Sister Peace and Leeds kind of have this weird friendship almost. Even though she's a nun, a Christian nun, and he's a demon from hell. But he kind of likes her. And it almost seems like she kind of likes him hanging around too. Chapter 12, Sweet Temptations. We just saw this story about 2 weeks ago on that trilogy tour. Linda Medley contributed. She basically reprinted this story, but in full color. It was pretty nice. And this is another one of those little interlude stories where Sister Peace is hanging out with Leeds. And it's a really fun little relationship they have. So now we have soliciting, part 1. You see Dr. Fell. He's giving everyone haircuts, because back then surgeons were also barbers. And now we get the whole origin story of Sister Peace. And she was born to a tavern owner and his wife. And she basically grew up working in the tavern. But then when she hit puberty, she started to grow a beard. No one really seems to care, except for the parents are a little, worried about it. She hears about how bearded ladies get jobs at circuses, so she runs off to join the circus. They're like, we already have a bearded lady. In fact, this is her, Clytemnestra, Queen of the Nile. What a woman. What a beard. So she gets a job anyway, because this guy, Warren, not Warren. I'll get his name later. So he runs the gambling tables for the circus, for the carnival. And there's also his wife runs the ale tables. So he's like, yeah, you could help my wife out. And she's like, yeah, I grew up working in a tavern. So perfect fit. But pretty soon she learns how to do the gambling games. She's got a good head on her shoulders. So she starts working for the husband as well. And she's pretty happy. And then one day, Clytemnestra befriends her because, she's never met another woman with facial hair. And they become fast friends. Best friends. We're now introduced to the owner of the circus and Clytemnestra's husband. And he's a jackass. Mr. Lint. He's pretty shitty. She's the star attraction of the circus. And he basically treats her like, property. So as the weeks go on and months go on, they become really good friends. One night, Clytemnestra sees Mr. Lint taking on a lover, having an affair. She listens to what they're saying. It seems like it's been going on for years. And not only that, but he's just totally like, oh my God, she's so disgusting. I only married her, basically because she's a cash cow. And she's the main attraction of the circus. I couldn't even kiss her at the wedding. So just really hurtful, terrible thing to hear. She runs back. She tells Sister Peace. Well, this is before she's a sister. Just Peace. And Peace is like, I'm going to get you out of here. Because literally, it's almost like she's a indentured servant. She's like, oh, he won't just let me leave. So Peace comes up with a plan. And here we see, even when she's young, Peace is very resourceful and plucky. So with Peace's help, they both escape the circus. Chapter 14, part 2 of this story. Everyone's enthralled with her origin story. They're like, tell us more, tell us more. So now she does. So they're basically heading to a nunnery, the Soliciting order of nuns. And they're all bearded ladies. So they figure that's perfect for us. So they're getting lost, though. They don't really know where it is. Meanwhile, Lint realizes that Clytemnestra and Peace are missing. And he basically gets a posse together to retrieve them. So now it's a race against time. Peace and Clytemnestra are trying to get to the nunnery before these guys catch up to him and haul him back to the circus. Lint is one of the few truly villainous characters in this comic. There's no redeeming features. He's pretty shitty. He even talks about how, like, basically he's gonna gut Peace. He's gonna kill her. So they make it to the nunnery with the posse hot on their heels. Of course, the nunnery accepts them, and we see the Mother Superior here, the abbess, if you will. And the abbess says, we'll take care of those guys. I guess they've dealt with interlopers before. So it's almost like the Wizard of Oz. She has this whole thing she does where she has these lights on her, and she has a rising platform, so she looks like some, I don't know, demi-goddess. And she's got these two old lions, though they don't know they're old. And so she's very imposing here. The Lint says, hey, we work for the circus. We're not fooled by your little tricks. And she's like, what do you mean we? And all the guys have run away. So Lint is basically chased off. Clytemnestra throws the ring right at his head. And so the bad guy runs off. The good guys won. Part 3 of Celicitine, Chapter 15. So Clytemnestra and Peace become part of the nunnery. There's this little character named Skeeter. She's a little girl with a giant walrus mustache. Very adorable. And we're introduced to the patron saint of the Celicitine Order, and Saint Wilgefort. And then we hear her story. So this is almost like the Decameron, where there's like all these flashbacks and stories nested within flashbacks and stories. This whole last part of the book. So this is, I guess, Saint Wilgefort. She grew up in like Arabia. It looks like, you know, some kind of Arabian land. And she had like 7 sisters. She was the youngest and most beautiful of all of them. Nejma was her name. Their father was a very wealthy caliph, but very unfeeling, a hard, cold man. So he arranged for her to be married to some, I don't know, some asshole merchant or something, like they did back then. And little does the father doesn't know, but all of the daughters kind of have a secret. Well, they totally have a secret. They are all followers of Jesus. This is the time when Jesus was just, you know, coming around. And they all love Jesus. So that night, Nejma, the night before she's to be wed, she prays to God. She prays to Jesus and says, I don't want my beauty. It's like a curse. Please take away my beauty. In the morning when she wakes up, she's got a huge beard. So the father is so enraged that he crucifies his own daughter on a cross. He kills her. But there was a miracle. Before Nejma could like bleed out in front of everyone, a blinding white light appeared, and then Nejma was gone. Basically swooped up to heaven, I guess. So the sisters took her body, or the cross, I'm sorry, the body's gone. And they decided to go on a pilgrimage, and everywhere they went, they spread the word of Jesus and converted people, because they told the story of this miracle. And eventually they ended up at this, what became the Abbey. And I guess this castle here, this mansion, was owned by, a guy, a nobleman, and his wife was a bearded lady. So she, of course, took them all in, and that was long ago. And ever since, it's been this abbey. And then she tells another story about Dumb William, this mute itinerant musician who played music for the saint. And the saint kicked off, well, basically the gold shoes of the saint fell off. And almost like as a gift to Dumb William. So now we're back to not the present, but to Peace's origin story, where she's hanging out at the abbey with Clytemnestra, and they're meeting everyone, all the nuns there. There's a lot of fun character interplay. Chapter 16, Celestine Part 4. So we're still going to get this backstory. But now we have another tale. So this is the story, the origin story of the abbess. So when she was a youngster named Clarice, she also joined the circus. The circus was owned by Luther and Anna Munrab, and Anna was very protective of the young girls who worked there. And there was 4. And they all became great friends. Long Meg, the giantess, and she was just a very tall girl, but, she worked in the freak show. And then Amelia, the two-headed girl, and they were basically Siamese twins, Emily and Eliza. And they were very different from each other, very always quarreling, but they all became great friends with the young abbess. Next to them, there was this lion tamer, a Romany lion tamer named Nico. All the girls had a crush on him. He's just this very handsome guy. One day, he starts talking to the young abbess. And he basically says, I'm going to teach you how to read people's fortunes. And basically, he's teaching her how to read people. That's how you really read their fortunes. And she's just starstruck. She's so in love with him. But, he's older. And she's like, he's just probably taking pity on me. So the days and weeks and months pass. And she's getting better and better at reading people. And there's this beautiful girl from the village who wants to get with Nico. And he's always just like, there's a love back in my town, back in my home. I can't, cheat on her. So he keeps hanging out with the young abbess. And she begins her new act. She calls herself Madame Zenora, the fortune teller. Of course, he's totally helping her out. And then he admits to her, he says, I've always been in love with you. I waited until you were, I guess 18, but back then it was probably 15, And they kiss, and he says, I want to marry you. And she's amazed and thrilled. So they're married, and they have a baby, and they live with Nico's 2 lions. They inherited the circus, but then Nico passed away, and that's when she came to the nunnery with her 2 lions, who are still alive. I guess she has 2 sons, and they come to visit every once in a while. Chapter 17, Part 5 of this Sister Peace origin story. So basically, Clytemnestra has fallen in love with this guy near the nunnery. They're not nuns. They just are, you know, accepting the sanctuary of this nunnery. But Sister Peace will become one, of course. So there's this whole story. We have another villain, the local mill owner, who's this greedy bastard. And everyone has to deal with him, though, because back then, everyone needs their flour. So it's this elaborate plan where they want to buy the mill. They've got to figure out a way to buy it. And luckily, this evil guy, the mill owner, I think his name is Mr. Miller, he has this dream of being a courtier at the king's court. And I guess you could basically just pay a certain amount of gold. So he's been trying to amass all this gold just so he can quit being a mill owner. He's already sold all of his other properties, and now he wants to sell the mill, so it works out. And also, Clytemnestra and this guy can't really get married until this is all cleared up. So it's just like they all hatch a scheme, you know. And it's castle waiting, so you know it's going to work out. You know it's going to be a pretty happy ending. Chapter 18, Celestine Part 6. This is a pretty long story arc. So the two guys from the circus, they're reunited with Clytemnestra and Sister Peace. Or just Peace, sorry. And he tells them what happened. How Lynn just kind of disappeared, the circus owner. And these guys from the circus, they got all of Lynn's money, which was all their back pay. He was basically hoarding all their back pay. So now they're Peace and Clytemnestra are pretty rich. So they're like, oh, we can buy the mill now. And then we can be married. Everything works out in Castle Waiting. That's why it's comfort comics. There's also this guy who works the mill. Mr. Miller doesn't even know how to run the mill. He just inherited it from his dad. And basically he keeps this guy as a slave because he's so valuable. He's the one who runs the mill. And this poor guy has never left the premises of this mill in, like, I don't know, 10 years. So, of course, they take care of everything. They have the wedding, part 7. And they even get the guy who runs the mill. They pay off Mr. Miller to let him come to the wedding. That's what a bastard he is. He's like, no, that's a lot of work, you know, if he leaves for the day. It's like, well, how much would that be worth to you? And they pay him gold. And so using some chicanery, because this Miller has always hated the nuns for some reason. He hates the nunnery. Because they're the second biggest power in the county. They own lots of property. And so the wedding goes off without a hitch. Very happy wedding. So everyone gets what they want. Mr. Miller gets to go to the king's court and become a... Well, what do you call that? Just someone who hangs out at court. Not a courtesan. That's a different kind of hanging out. And Clytemnestra and her betrothed, they leave. They get their own little house. But Peace wants to stay. And she likes the life of being a nun. But eventually she got wanderlust, and she wanted to go, so she leaves the nunnery, and she just travels around, and we see her on a bunch of adventures, some not so nice. We see her in a horrible war where all these dying and wounded she's ministering to. And eventually she made it to Castle Waiting, and she's lived there ever since. And we close out this chapter with Leeds, the devilish little imp, pestering Sister Peace again. But yeah, definitely my favorite part of this series is their little relationship. You can tell she kind of likes Leeds, but he's a pest. So now we see the epilogue. Everything's happy. Skeeter's got a new puppy even. And it's just a cute little epilogue. All the lettering in here is done by famous comic letterer Todd Klein. Kind of a coup for this little self-published cartoonist to get that. So there you go, guys. Castle Waiting. Sorry I didn't really talk about too much of the plot. I kind of skimmed over a lot because this is so fat. This would have been a 2-hour video. But I highly recommend Castle Waiting. Apparently there's a second one of these, collecting all the other stories. And I think that's the end of it. I think Linda Medley is done with Castle Waiting. At least it sounds like it from the things I read on the internet. But I've got to get that. I have some of the comics that consist of it, but I don't have all of them, so I can't finish the story. But this is a great little book. I think it was like $30 new. I'm sure you could find it for cheap. I don't think this is that popular, you know. So good luck finding it. And yeah, just really just nice classic cartooning, nice, just sweet. It's sweet. That's what it is. It's just a sweet, nice reading experience, which, you know, every now and then, what's wrong with that? It's kind of nice to just read about nice people for once. Not hurting each other and being mean. Okay, hope you guys liked the video, and I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.